Hello, everybody. I am here with Maria Franz. She's the lead female singer of Heilung, and she also has another group called Euzen. Maria, can you tell us a little bit about how to pronounce that?
Yeah, well, we chose to pronounce it Euzen, but it's from Old Greek, so no one really knows how to pronounce it. But yeah, so.
And I believe that this is going to be another tea time interview here. And we're going to start this off by talking about our tea because it's a comfy topic.
I loved it when you asked if we, or when we talked about, let's have a cup of tea together, because I'm a big tea drinker. And so right now I'm having my first mix of echinae. I don't know how you pronounce that.
Echinacea?
Echinacea. Yeah, that's the thing, huh? Because I don't know if it's something I made up. Echinacea? Of course, echinacea. Yeah. So, pronouncing stuff that you only read in letters can be interesting sometimes. But yeah, and peppermint. I've been hooked on peppermint tea now for 5 years. I never tire of it. I can drink tons of it.
Good. Well, just so you know, as a thank you for talking with me today, we are planning to send you a tea from Upton Tea, which is my favorite tea company. And so I'll talk to you and get your choice of tea at some point.
Yay! Awesome. I'm loving this.
I know. I have a white tea today. The cup is white, but I guess it's kind of, the liquid doesn't really look white for white tea, right? But it was it's like a downy white tea that a patron recently told me about and actually sent a sample. And I was like, oh, this is really, really good. So I've been exploring white teas recently.
Yeah.
Really lovely.
Do you use honey in it?
No honey in this one. I do use honey in tea sometimes, like especially for some of the like more Christmassy teas. So when they have like more spicy or nutty notes, then sometimes I like the honey in that to bring it out.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We have a lot of a local honey in my area. Right now I'm in our home, and we're in the Danish countryside. It's pitch black outside and actually a storm right now, so it's perfect for tea. And yeah, a lot of bee farmers around in quite organic farming. So it's really a luxury thing here.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. I love different kinds of honey too. So you must have a plethora.
Yeah. It depends on the season and the flowers, and yeah, it's awesome.
That's cool. That's really cool. Well, we just finished Christmas break time, and I was asking Maria a little bit right before we started recording here about what she did over the break, and I was wondering if you'd like to maybe share that because it's so cool.
Yeah, super proud of our Christmas this year, because we finally got to build the Millennium Falcon in Lego. And it's I think it was a long dream for my boyfriend, because he used to build a lot of Lego as a kid, and now it's a lot of grown-up Lego out there, and I had no idea, but this is massive. It's 7,000 pieces and so much fun sorting and building, and yeah, it's good brain exercise.
This is like a new life goal of mine now, to build the Millennium Falcon with Legos specifically, and then probably display it prominently somewhere.
I'll send you a picture when it's finished.
I would love that. That's so awesome. I have so many questions I want to ask you, and also a couple of questions from some fans that are in our Patreon group. And I guess the first thing that I'd really like to go into is to ask you a little bit about the various groups you sing with, because you're not just with Heilung. I was introduced to you through Heilung and was really, really blown away actually by the In Maijan. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, in Maijan. In Maijan, you can you pronounce normally all the letters in the Nordic languages is quite, at least in Norwegian, it's quite pronounced, like, so it's pronounced as it's written, more or less, a lot of the times at least. Yeah,
that's cool. It's kind of like German.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Yeah, I was was really blown away by the solo section in there, and we'll definitely get into that. But I'd love to know about the various groups you sing with. Can you kind of break them down and tell us a little bit of history of them too?
Yeah, sure. So I've been working with Nordic folk music since I was about 15, and working with that for many years in Norway. And then I met my partner in crime and love of my life, Christopher Jewell, which is a Danish composer and musician. And together when we met in 2006, we instantly started making music together. It was kind of on the first date kind of thing, like, oh, I can hit bang this and I can pling-a-ling on this, and then I used the song kind of, boom, we had a song. So Euzen, our first project together, grew out of that first meeting, and we composed a lot, the two of us, and then we got some band members on, and this has been an ongoing project since 2006. And we have released 3 albums and played the various shows with it. And the genre is, and the reason why I started saying that I was working with folk music and then met Chris and we went more electronic, because it was like I needed a little dive into this modern day and age. Like, we have so many possibilities in computer instruments and how to manipulate sounds and everything. So I felt that only working with acoustic instruments was kind of almost a bit like, okay, I didn't discover enough, like how can we evolve this? And Chris was working a lot with electronic music, and together we I brought my folk background and he brought his classical piano and his electronic background, and Euzen was born out of this mishmash of genres. And to this day, it's our playground where everything is allowed and we don't put any boundaries. We have a really hard time putting a genre on this project because, it's a playground. So rather it's hard when you try to book it or to go out to play with it, because it's like, oh, is it pop? Is it rock? Is it electronic? Is it folk? It's a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. So that's Euzen. And then recently, 4 years ago, we started another project called Songleikr, and Songleikr is all pure Nordic acoustic folk. So it's like I needed also to get back to that again. And we formed it with our very good friend Ingrid from Trondheim up in Norway. She's a fantastic singer. So they were two Norwegian singers, and then Chris on various string instruments and percussion. And It's basically also not an ambitious project at all. It's for our own love of these old folk songs that we sing around the fireplace when we do Viking reenactment anyways. So it was just like bringing it into a album version and getting it out there. And it's getting very, very well received. People also like the acousticness of it, I think.
Yeah.
Jeg kan ikke hvile I min ulvetime
I can see that. And you're saying for various reenactments too. Is that for things like LARPing, or is this for things? Yes.
That's one of the things I wanted to discuss with you also, because you mentioned it in your reaction video. And I've been a live role player since I was 15, I think. Tabletop and everything. I'm total geek. Total.
I love that so much.
Yeah, right. But it's an environment which is super healthy to explore your personal sides and form new friendships. And it's also fun when you start to get friends internationally, when you have this in common. It's like you I know who you are. I don't think.
Exactly. Like, oh, we share this thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Ingrid.
Oh, these swords. I don't know if you see them. They're actually shard blades. They were a gift from my husband. Shard blades from one of my favorite fantasy series, which is the Stormlight Archives. And yeah, there's specific ones. So anyhow, they're not quite, we're a little worried about using them for battle because they're so pretty, but they're huge. Anyhow, so.
And it's not foam. It's not the foam blades. They're actually...
They're like fiberglass. They're that foam. But there's a couple edges which we're like, oh, we don't want to, there's just works of art, because this one is actually like a specific sword, and this one is another specific sword from the novel. So anyhow.
I was eyeballing it, like, what is that? But we do also reenactment in Viking Age, and that is a more... you don't play a character. We are ourselves, but we are living in the Viking Age and making our own clothes. And there's all kinds of crafts. You're either a fighter or a silversmith or a musician or dyeing wool, and there's all this crafts people from all over the world gathering once a year on these festivals where we show to the audience what our ancestors were producing and how they were living. When the audience go home, we sit around the fireplace singing songs and drinking, having a jolly time.
Oh, that sounds like so much fun. I want to go.
You would love it for sure.
That's awesome. Okay, and then obviously you sing with Heilung as well. So when did that start? And can you tell me a little bit about that too?
Yeah, well, that was wow. Chris and Kai, we're three in the core of Heilung, and it started in 2014. That's where our computer in the studio tells us that we formed the first notes. But it was actually Christopher and Kai that started it, and I stood a little bit on the side because Kai came into the studio with a bunch of poetry that he had written that he was asking Chris to record. And they would do a trade because Kai is a tattoo artist. So Chris would get a tattoo in exchange for him recording his poetry.
Oh,
but this was kind of the guys' project. And I remember just coming home from work and being like, oh my God, what are they doing? Because Kai would just stand half naked in our garden screaming into a microphone. We had a studio in an old industrial building, and we had a garden down beneath where we were also living at that time. So it was just this, I was just baffled. I could not believe what they were doing, actually. And then at some point they were like, oh, Maria, can you put some vocals? We have this long ambience piece. Can you just do some improvised vocals on it? And I did. And that was in Median.
Cool.
That was my first. So on the recording, that is a one take, just me jamming over what the guys had created. And they just ended up using the whole piece. I was thinking like, okay, they're probably going to do like snippets and repeat something. But no, they just did the whole 8-minute long. So that was how I entered the project. And I was so instantly sucked into it. It was a magical world of trance-like states, both listening and working. It's a very spiritual thing to work in the studio with it, because you have to kind of put your mind in a very special place to get these emotions out. And it's mostly one takes on the recordings, because we are kind of trying to capture the moments of pieces.
That's really cool. Do you do much post-production afterwards?
Well, yes and no. It's partly what we do. Everything is organically made. So we sample a lot of nature sounds. So we go, all of us have Zoom recorders, and everything from seagulls to waves to, I've been a lot in my garden this summer because it's been so quiet, no airplanes or car traffic or
that's right.
Lockdown. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it was a good year to capture nature sounds. So I would say there's a lot of pre-production, like we are manipulating all these organic sounds, and then we put our vocals on and do our things with it.
That's cool. That I was really curious when watching a couple of the different Heilung just performances with YouTube. There, it seemed like there was a lot of background noises also from the audience, but I wasn't sure if it's from the audience. It seemed like additional people. Was that something that was in the pre-production that you were ready to sort of load in, or was that something that was from that audience there, or did you need to take out some audience sounds in the end?
Yeah, I heard your reaction to that, and I was thinking like, oh my God, there's a lot of people commenting on this, because that is audience. On Lifa, there was an extremely loud audience, and some people you hear very clearly through the whole show, going like really just releasing their primal sounds. That's so. To answer your question, no, that's the audience, and we had to filter some of it out to kind of get the
to make sure we could hear you.
Yeah.
Wow, it was really cool to hear sort of that ambiance. Even it sounded like maybe people were eating, or that, like, it sounded like there were dishes at some point. Maybe they were clinking drinks. I'm not sure.
Oh, do you remember which song? Was it still in my Dian?
I think that was in my Dian.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? It might have been one of the like percussion instruments kind of clinking together as it was moved. That's a possibility.
Must have been, because there was, I can assure you, there was no dishwashing going on in the perimeter. So I'm pretty sure that must have been some percussive. We have Alex Sopaso, and on Lifa we also have Juan Pino, two percussionists, and then Jacob, which is on a lot of the big drums. So together, these three basically just brought in their arsenal. Is that the right word?
That's a great word.
Yeah. They were like, yeah, it's everything from tree roots to nuts to metal to, try to make the soundscapes as thick as possible.
Yeah, with lots of layerings of different kinds of sounds, right?
Yeah.
So when I'm really curious about like decisions on costuming and what kinds of sounds you would bring, knowing that you're taking Zoom recorders out and grabbing things like that, and also for Euzen, if there's other sounds, or also for folk songs, if there are other sounds you're bringing in, I'd love to know about that. But where does that inspiration come from? Are we talking Bronze Age, Iron Age? Where do you imagine these instruments from? And how do you make them?
Yeah. Well, it's a good question. I was also very happy to hear you say that in your reaction video, that you mentioned Bronze Age and Iron Age, because we actually work more with those periods than the Viking Age, because we don't know much anyways about the findings are very limited. Mm-hmm. Drums, there are nothing from the Viking Age. It's really, really scarce. So it's like different theories. Were they too precious to be buried, or did they just rot because it's all made of animal parts anyways? But of course they had drums. All ancient cultures have drums and use them very, very vividly to get to a trance-like state of mind where you can meet the spirits and the ancestors. And it's definitely Heilung's inspiration comes most and foremost from ritual performances. And I love it that Kai, which is our spiritual leader, I would call him, not that it's a sect or anything, but he has been doing rituals from a very young age, and has a strong way of connecting with the spirit world, you can say. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he can tell a lot more about that part, but he said something very nice about the ritual being a theater for the gods. That is basically what it is. From ancient times, you would put on a ritual to honor your gods, and you would do it as a theater play, actually. Like, now comes the Virgin with the holy mead, and you pour it through this ring, and you have all these different accessories to help getting the spectators in a trance-like state, so they also can partake in this. And they would normally eat mushrooms or take out other hallucinogenic fabrics to also be able to put themselves in this state of mind. And a lot of the pieces from Heilung are inspired by Kai's meetings with the spirit world, and therefore we try a lot of our work when the three of us are working in the studio is trying to recreate a very, very specific state of mind. And Christopher and me are not taking hallucinogenic drugs, so we kind of have to put ourselves in the shaman's place. Okay, so you said you heard a whistling sound. Can you describe it further? And then he would use like sometimes hours just trying to weave us into this dream that he had about walking in the forest and how it would feel, how it would smell. And then we tried to put this into a song.
That is so incredible.
It's quite challenging at times and very interesting work.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And also because you really feel that in music with Heilung, you really feel that it's got some sort of trance state happening. Even from watching something on YouTube, which, by the way, I saw, I think it's in October, that you have a concert planned. I think it's in Colorado.
Yeah.
And we are planning to go. So
hoping.
Yes, I really would love to experience this for myself live. Yeah. So yeah, very excited.
Something else live. And that's why we also said that we very quickly agreed that we wouldn't do any live streamed concerts with Heilung. Of course, we would like to film the ritual again and do a leaf at some point, with a new material. But we wouldn't do a live stream because it's half of the experience is to be there together and. Joining, we always say that the audience are part of the ritual. It's not like you're a spectator and someone on stage. We would like to think us all being this one part of the same thing happening, and so you have to kind of be there and feel the beating of the drum. Not only the beat, but that it should really like hit you physically. If we could, we would like to all hold hands with the audience, but yeah, it's practically hard sometimes.
I relate to that really, really very much with singing opera and the feeling of the audience and the way that they change each performance. Their responses are always changing the performance. Their feeling and their anticipation contributes to it. So it's a beautiful thing. I imagine it is even more intense with the music that Heilung is making.
Well, we have a lot of beats to accompany. In opera, you have mostly classical instruments, and well, I don't know how much like rhythm you're working with. Is it classical?
Yeah, there can be a pretty hefty percussion section, but it sort of depends on what part of the music or where you're coming from. Sometimes I think like more modern operatic composers would have some more rhythm, more likely. But it just depends, I think, on the scene.
Yeah. See, that's a genre which is super fascinating to me, where opera, how to use your body in that way. We could talk for hours.
Well, okay. So one of the things that made me totally flip, which you probably laughed at, was when you're in your solo section of In Maijan, excuse me, you are exploring so many different parts of your voice. It's so cool. And you do a thing that I called the Banshee at one point. I hope that wasn't offensive.
Yeah, I loved it. That to finally have a word on that sound. Yes, there it is. It's the Banshee.
Well, this comes from, I was making that sound when I was a kid, and my brother and his friend said I sounded like a banshee, and it kind of stuck. But I'd never heard another female really sustain that sound. And I was just like, it felt like I was understood,
Great.
So can you tell me about how you started exploring these sounds, where they come from? Did you take voice lessons at some point? Are you still taking voice lessons? Like, how have you developed your voice in this magical way?
Wow. Well, first of all, I'm super humble that you that you feel this way, because it's a weird sound, and I have never heard anyone make it either. So yeah. No, I took a few vocal lessons like 10 years ago, just to be sure that I was on the right track with my voice, because I was experimenting a lot with Euzen, and I was going really high places with a lot of volume, and I just wanted to make sure that I didn't do anything damaging with my voice. So I took a few lessons, and I got the answer that no worries, as long as it doesn't hurt, you're okay. And there I also got a few good tricks about the back muscle support and how to expand the rib cage, which I've been doing intuitively, but never really had much focus on. So that kind of put me on a good track of, okay, being just a little bit more focused on my body, and that helped me a lot. So when we started with Heilung, I just basically realized that because of all the years singing this super complicated stuff with Euzen, I had a lot of different tools in my vocal toolbox. Like felt like I really could just like, okay, now I can use this. So what I just started with was just to play around with it and see, okay, how, if I'm just releasing myself completely and trying to not think and just do what it feels like, then weird stuff would happen. And none of it was planned. So basically what we normally do, this is a trade secret, but I'm going to share it anyways, is that we do this one takes in the studio, right? And then afterwards we have to learn what we were actually doing to be able to recreate it live.
That's funny.
Yeah, because you just that's where most beauty come from, is when you can improvise it, and it's very, very fun to relearn it afterwards. Also, like, okay, where can I breathe? Because it's also good to do occasionally.
When you think about adding some of these, like the tools that you're thinking of, do you think ever about like a register, like, oh, I want to like have this chesty sound, and then like have like that flipping element, so it almost is like a yodel where you're going back and forth between a chest voice and head voice? Or do you think about like bringing a whistle? Do you think about registers like that, or are you just thinking more about timbres that you want to find?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, because I recently started to think about that, and then I figured out that, whoa, I don't actually know how this practically works. So a couple of months ago, I went to this vocal boot camp to just get some more like, okay, how does it actually work? And it was 4 days of intensive physical work. We almost didn't sing at all, but it was just like, okay, recognize how, if I lift my leg and then, push from here, how is that supposed to feel? So now in the time to come, I'm very curious. I haven't been singing a lot since then, so since that class. So I'm curious if I'm able to control it more, because I can control a lot of my toolbox, but there's a few things like, what's a good example? Having distortion on my, what do you say that? Oh, yeah, on my, isn't the head voice, right? When you sing like loud in volume, to put distortion on top of that is something that's completely random for me. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't want to come, and I'm like, okay, now I think I have some more tools to learn that. But that was extremely valuable for me to realize that the voice is a continuous journey, and it's like it keeps giving. The older I get, the more I feel that my voice is maturing, and my mom says it's also like, oh, you have such a rich voice now, and I can hear it changing, and very nice to feel that it's more levels. And I quit smoking in January, and I've been a smoker since I was 15.
Wow.
So that actually also makes me now realize that I'm finding some even higher register, or it's easier to go up there. And so that's it's a fascinating instrument, the voice.
It's so interesting because it's a part of your body in every single way. You're like, oh, if I do this thing, if I drink this thing, anything I do, it affects my vocal folds.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. And also fascinating to hear how quitting smoking has affected your voice now. I know some singers, they'll use smoking also to help get a little bit more of that, what I would call like a gritty sound into their vocals. Sometimes they actually rely on that for like, especially for jazz, if you're going for that. But of course, the long-term health complications tend to not be able to sustain that as well. But other than feeling your voice go a little bit higher since quitting, is there anything else you've noticed?
I wish I noticed more. I have to admit it. The lung capacity is. I took a lung test recently for another reason, but he said I have lungs like an 18-year-old, and I've been a heavy smoker since I was 15. So I'm not a good example in that. But the sense of smell has really returned. I can smell a lot of things, good and bad.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Good and bad.
Yeah. The birds are nice. When they're manuring the fields, not so nice. Yeah.
Well, we've alluded to it a couple of times, but I'm really curious about how COVID has affected your last year. I think you guys essentially shifted your tour to just be a year later, right?
Yeah. Everything got rebooked, and I must admit that it's been a good year in many ways. I've been able to tend my garden for the first time, like properly. Summertime is normally a very, very busy time, and we can't do much work at home at all. So this kind of slow, more meditative working in the garden, starting to join this vocal boot camp. We've been able to experiment more in the studio, and to be honest, Heilung went from 0 to 110 in such a short time.
Yeah.
So we had two extremely busy years. 2017 was only 2 shows, but then 18 and 19 was very, 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 very busy. So we were also kind of grateful to come back from the US and then actually have a bit of a break. And then we shifted around some plans. So we're working in the studio on new material for both Heilung and Euzen.
Great. I was hoping that you'd also be working on new stuff with other. So is Euzen going to do any touring as well?
Not yet. We are planning on releasing this album, which has been 5 years underway now.
Wow.
In the year to come. Yeah, because life happened. So we had to build a new studio, and then Heilung kicked off and everything. So now finally, it's time to finish this Euzen album, which we are extremely grateful to have found time to do. I love all the songs so much. I can't wait to get them out into the world. And so let's see. Since Euzen has been so quiet for so long, we haven't really kicked off the whole booking thing and everything. I think we're just gonna release the material and then see where it takes us.
It's really cool. It's fascinating to hear about all of the things that you're working on. I have some more questions here. Pre-performance routine. Do you ever do anything before a performance that you feel like really helps you out, or are there any sort of rituals or traditions that you have?
Yeah, well, I've never been a big warm-up person, but I never felt that I really needed it, because you're talking all day and it kind of feels like the voice is is warm.
Mhm.
But I like to, but I do it for like more mental preparation. On the whole Europe tour and the US tour we had this year, I got into a habit together with the 2 other female singers in the band that we just found this YouTube warm-up exercise that lasted for 10 minutes. And we would just sing along to it while we were doing makeup and preparing. And it felt not important vocal-wise, but just to put you in the state of mind where I remember where my body is. Like just this little inner focus. Okay, here's my rib cage, here's my support in my stomach, here's the back. Like kind of just go through and just mentally prepare for the work to come. And we have the whole group have various rituals together. The warriors do their thing, and us the singers do one thing, and the drummers do their thing, and then we all meet behind the stage in one, like everyone is meeting each other and greeting and giving heartfelt. I mean, no one can touch me, right? Because I'm all white and everyone else is black. So I'm normally the one standing there, like spreading my love in all the ways I can, with just being non-touching. So yeah, and then of course when we're standing in the opening circle, that is a very, very big shifting moment, going from preparing to preparing, settling, being there, and we're all holding hands and saying this opening poem, the prayer, which just sets the mind in such a beautiful way. So yeah, that's the preparation, and then it's just downhill from there.
That's great. It sounds like you basically take the time to really prepare to focus on the message that you're bringing, which I feel like is the most important thing in singing, is communicating that. Yeah.
If you don't feel it, then the audience won't feel it either. And I have to really enjoy what I'm doing to be able to contribute that feeling towards everyone who's listening. And I feel that's the biggest responsibility of every musician, is to you giving your best, your all, your inner feelings, cringing them out. Yeah. Oh, I miss now talking about it.
I know, it's like I love that so much though. Let's see. I would love to know if you have any role models or mentors. Are there any singers that you just absolutely love? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I love Björk. She has been my first meeting with someone who used their voice in a non-poppy way, or non-classical way. And her freedom in expressing herself vocally is a huge inspiration. I think sometimes when I need courage, I think like, oh, what would Björk do? Courage in a vocal thing, because she just seems so brave and down to earth and up in the sky at the same time. So she's a big inspiration for sure. I'm of other singers. There's so much wonderful singers out there, and they all do their different things. There's a Swedish singer called Jose Gonzalez, which is a guy he's just acoustic with his voice and guitar, and he's just so intimate in his way, super calm, super chill. And I think it's like you have to find your strength from within, but it's also good to have someone to kind of pick on if you need, okay, now I need some calmness. And then I love to sing along to all kinds of different music if I'm vacuuming or doing something that makes noise, because then I feel like an experiment and be a wiser singer from singing along and trying to learn some new techniques by copying what others are doing. But you have to have your own ground foundation to build on. So
I do it while I'm like drying my hair, because that's when I have the noise.
I don't dry my hair, but if I did, I would totally. Yeah.
How do you take care of your hair? It's gorgeous. It's just fascinating. It's really, it's amazing. How do you take care of it?
I wash it with normal shampoo every second day, and then I'll let it dry. So it's basically, now I took out some and have a little bit normal hair again here, because it's I cut it like 3 times now. It's
wow,
it's really long.
so long.
But it's nice for stage, but it's a nuisance when it comes to doing like practical work, and I'm kind of a person who likes to do things in the workshop and in the garden, and I like to do practical stuff. So normally I have to tie it up so it's not in the way.
Do you ever find yourself sleeping on it and you have to be like, oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. And sometimes my boyfriend sleeps on it and I just
like, oh, honey. That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. We've talked about so much. Oh man, I have a couple of really fun questions. First of all, I want to know what your favorite venue that you've ever performed in is, and it could be your garden. Just saying, like that's totally valid.
Okay. Oh, that's so hard because they're all so different. They all have their amazing atmospheres. What could be? Well, I love Denver, I have to say. In Denver, we played in a venue which was Houdini's old venue. And the backstage still have this, where he disappears in the floor, this pole with this for one of his disappearing acts. And it was so quirky. It was like us girls, we had the up backstage room. Everything was tiny and connected to this spiral case. So it was like down in the basement was all the warriors and the food. And then you go one up and there's a drummer, one up, there's the Kaya and Chris. And then all the way in the top, there was the girls like in the top tower. Up there. So it was just fun venue, and it was just a magical night, which also means a lot when the audience are amazing as well. And in the US tour, they started a trend quite early, I think already in the first gig in LA, that the audience started to howl like wolves when they entered the venue. And then the more people who came, then the more people started howling. And we could hear it in the backstage. You could just hear this howling growing stronger and stronger and stronger. You're like, okay, yeah, it's about time now. And then, just this whole venue vibrating in these wolf howls. It just got wilder and wilder during the tour. I loved touring in the US. I have to say the US audience are the most amazing in the world. They come with makeup and outfits, and the security guards had a havoc trying to lift people from their knives and from their magic wands and whatever they would like to bring to the show,
Yes. Like, is this a foam sword or a real one?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and people with horns are beautiful, but it's also can poke someone's eye out. So it's yeah.
I have some horns up there that could definitely do some damage.
Yeah.
Which I would probably bring to a performance. Yeah, I definitely would wear them.
I think it would work out in Colorado though, because it's a big outdoor seated thing. So the people behind you wouldn't like it so much, but.
Although they probably have their own horns on.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Kind of similar to that, this might be the same one, but I was curious if you have a favorite performance, and this could include recording sessions as well, just a performance that you feel like was an extraordinary vocal and spiritual experience for you.
I'm sorry, you have to repeat that question.
I was
still thinking about my favorite venue. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Well, I think that favorite performance might be in that venue too. It might be, or it might be you've talked about this session that you did, this one session in Maidyan, or it could be a recording session. It could be around a fire as a Viking. There's so many different areas where you could have a favorite performance. Do you have one?
do I have one? I think, I think I have to. There's a lot, of course, also with Heilung, there's a lot of magical times, but I think I have to go to Euzen in the Castlefest performance, which have some videos from out on YouTube, and there was just this perfect combination of the perfect sound, the perfect night, and the perfect everything just clicked. It was just, I had just the most beautiful sound in my ears, and you know how it is sometimes you can just rest in that, and you can just feel that I can give so much. I have the eternity of range before me because it's just so easy, and I can hear everything. You know, that was just a really, really good night. And there's sometimes which it's harder, and you have to struggle a little bit more because you can't hear something that is going to guide you, but yeah, so it's a good one.
You've talked about the makeup and dress for Heilung a little bit. I'm curious, how long does it take you to get into costume and do your makeup?
It takes about, well, I like to plan 3 hours because then it's time to, eat in between and you don't have to stress it. But I think it probably takes an hour. Because I have a really, really, really good makeup artist, we're so lucky that she's also an amazing singer. So we kind of talked her into doing both roles. Annike Shereen. And Annike is, so she's helping with the makeup. She does do herself first, and then she helps me with that, and the rest I do myself. I tried twice to do my own makeup, and I can absolutely do it, but I don't like to stress with it because it's, if something goes wrong, and it's just, you just want to be in a calm bubble before the performance. And I love to have help with it. I think it's amazing. And then, when I have to take my dress on first, of course, and then do the makeup, so it's nothing blackening the white dress. And then after the dress is on, I'm basically going around like this pristine entity who is like, I have this invisible shield around me, and no one comes near me, and like I'm allowed to ask people to bring me stuff, and so I feel like a goddess, just people bringing me what I need.
Feel like you ask for water most often, or maybe chocolate? Like, what do you ask people?
Yeah, it's a funny state of mind to be in, but it's also beautiful because everyone is amazing. The whole group, we are some between 15 and 20 to 24 people working with it. Quite a small but very efficient crew, and then a lot of warriors and musicians. And the tour manager and everyone is amazing, and I miss them so much.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, you also commented on that actually in your video. You were asking yourself, I wonder if they are from different languages when they're singing.
Yes.
Yeah, I found that so fascinating that you could recognize this, and it's also a big thing, I think, because we are from Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, and France of female singers. The Parisian, we have recently Mira Seti from Paris is going to join us next year. But so that means, 4 different languages is going to pronounce this ancient Old Norse lyrics. And I am so in awe over their ability to find themselves in this ancient language. There's just a few rules you need to follow. You need to be able to pronounce the R, for instance. R is very good. And one of the songs, Norupo, I pronounce it in my dialect, my local dialect from Norway. So then I had to try to teach, the French and the Dutch and the Danish singer how to pronounce things in my dialect, and they all managed so well. And I'm just every time like, wow, how can you nail that? That is so far from your origin. But I think if you're a really good musician and then you manage to control your mouth
different
and
shapes,
really,
that's tough.
Yeah. So, and then the rest of the group, 8 countries altogether, Germany and Lithuania and the US. We have one warrior that made it from the US. Yeah.
I love the international collaboration. I think that's wonderful. Really wonderful.
It's a huge thing.
Super cool. And let's see, I have just one last question here before I ask a couple of questions from some people that we're very eager to ask you questions too. So I guess it's kind of a 2-part question. I want to know what the best and worst thing about your job, or is singing a job? Like, is singing, I don't know. But what do you think the best and worst thing about being you is?
Oh, that's a funny question. The best and the worst thing of being me in regarding to my profession, I guess the best is to be able to travel the world and meet a lot of beautiful people and work with a lot of very, very talented people. And then I mean everyone from the light engineer to the tour manager to the musicians. It's very, I love every part of those meetings. And the worst part is definitely the fear of getting sick along a tour.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's so bad that I'm afraid to, vocalize it, because it's just such a terror if you're going down with a really bad flu in the middle of a long tour. It's just painful, and you just have to do everything to try to get well quickly.
What do you do to try to get well?
Well, I only experienced it twice, and the last time it happened that I started to feel ill, I took there's this throat comfort tea from the US. Yeah, I just drank liters of that, and
echinacea.
And honey, and kept myself really warm, tried to sleep a lot, and I wrote it off. After on the second day, I was like, it's over. I kind of just managed to write it off. But the first time it happened, and then I lost my voice. And that was on the Euzen tour in 13, 14. So it happened once, but it still haunts me. It was a sold out venue in Germany, and I was just so much looking forward to it. And I tried to go on stage, but I explained to everyone that I have a cold. I lost my voice. It happened to me once in my entire life, but yeah. But then the band played without me.
Well, that's good that they were able to keep the show going, but
Yeah,
it's painful.
It was weird.
Yeah.
But I was able to see them play for the first time, which was very, very delightful.
Silver linings.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I have a couple of questions from some patrons. So I'm going to go with the first one here. This is from Andy, and you've talked about it a little bit. So Andy asked, Maria has a contemporary project, Euzen, where the last music was published in 2015. Are there any plans to continue with this project? So you answered that some. Do you want to elaborate any more?
Yeah, well, Andy, thanks for asking and for following this project as well. And it's going to be 11 pieces, and we're hoping to release in June, but still the pandemic is kind of haunting us because we're waiting for a cellist from the UK to come and record on this album. Her name is Jo Quayle, and she's extremely talented, so we really want her on board for this release. And I'm super psyched about all the songs. We also have a few other guests on it. And I don't know what's more to say other than, I'm looking forward to share it.
That's great. He's going to be so happy to hear that. And Richard asked, has collaborating with Heilung changed your writing and performance approach as opposed to your process with Euzen? Which you also talked a little bit about that, but I want to know more.
That's nice. Thanks, Richard. So yes, I have been reflecting on this because after working with Heilung for some time, then we had a big Euzen concert in Festival Medieval in Germany. And preparing for that concert, I was shocked by how easy it all of a sudden was to sing Euzen, opposed to when I started going from Euzen to Heilung. I felt that I had to rearrange myself a little bit because it was a very different way of using my vocals. But going the other way around, going from Heilung to Euzen, I felt that I had so much surplus in my vocal range and a lot of more stamina, and it was very interesting to take that shift.
That's really cool. And Richard had an additional question here. He said, also because of the transcendent nature of Heilung's music, do you find yourself improvising on stage during live shows, or is every vocal choice predetermined? You also talked a little bit about that, but I'm really curious in live shows and tours now, are you trying to recreate especially the initial take you might have gotten in the studio still, or are you finding new things?
I have to, I am a bit bound to, or no, I wouldn't say bound. It's a safety net that I have this kind of, this range where I'm moving inside, but then there's room for little adjustments along the way. But I always have this, we use, I guess it's not a trade secret because there's a lot of people who does this, but we have a clicker in the air to guide us. Yeah, and that's kind of crucial. So that means that I can improvise up to a certain point, but then when the clicker comes, then I know, okay, now I'm back on track for the final stages of this piece. But the most of the songs are pretty much sung as they are planned. But then I have in Galgalder, one of the new pieces from Fuda, I have some space to go to go crazy with the vocals, and yeah, I do.
Ooh. Okay. That also I will be doing if we post this. I'll do a reaction to one of the things that you're involved in before, and then I would do this afterwards. So just so you know, that's something that might kind of go hand in hand. So that one particularly, I'm like, ooh, that sounds really fun.
Nice.
That'd be cool. Let's see. Last question is actually from my hubby, from Kirk, who is a very he's a nerd. I mean, obviously, swords. So he wrote, in the final season of Vikings, a lot of Heilung music was used. What was the process for selecting what music went into each scene? And how did you decide which pieces of those songs to use? Was that a decision that you made, or, what was that process like?
Yeah, well, that is a music industry topic, which when it comes to a series like Vikings, they contact our label and they say that they're interested in us, and then they get to choose themselves what songs they would like to license, and then they pick what they feel fits to each scene. So that's not it's not a collaboration as such. Sadly, it would have been amazing, but then they would ask us to write something for this episode, for instance, and then we would get the material and we would look at it and then write something for it. But now they chose existing songs, so we were kind of just a little bit passive in that collaboration. Then it's interesting also to work with, for instance, this computer game from Ninja Theory called Hellblade. They made 2, So that's a different story, because then we're much more involved in the process of creating, and it becomes more of a dialogue about the arch, which was super, super interesting work, and we loved every second of it.
That's awesome. I could absolutely see you and any of the groups that you work with collaborating with a bunch of different video game composers that I know. Could see that sort of just folding in very nicely to so many different games, and that can be such a fun, it's a really great collaborative process. In that way, you get to put layers of things on instead of just like, oh, here's a track for a placement.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Really cool. Well, I think that wraps up the questions that I had written down. Is there anything else you would like to add? And can you also make sure to let us know where we can learn more about you or any of your groups, or buy your music or get tickets to your concerts?
Yeah, sure. I'll send you a bunch of links. But I think in general, if you guys want to follow the different Facebook pages, that's like the one basis where we put everything out, shows and releases and everything. So yeah. Do I have anything to add? I just love what you do, I just gotta say, because you have such a natural and beautiful approach to the vocals, and that's what kind of gripped me. I just had to write you after I saw your reaction. You're like, you're amazing. Thank you for diving so deep in and being so relaxed and methodical, if I can say that. Like you're very natural approach. And as every craft, is always such a pleasure to be allowed to talk about what you do. So I was happy that you wanted to drink tea with me today.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. You're wonderful. It's been so fun to get to know you more. And I think that will wrap us up. Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Cheers.